welcome to At the Forefront, Fintech Conversations. I'm Michael Kingsley, and I'm a Senior Vice President at Forefront Communications. Today, I'm speaking with Rob Mackay, the CEO of Regnology. Rob, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have this chat. Let's jump right in. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about, more than a little bit more, you didn't say anything yet, about what Regnology does, who you guys are, and how you facilitate regulatory compliance?
Sure, Michael. We do three main things. We're a mid-sized technology company. We've got about 1,000 staff. We focus on three areas: regulatory reporting for banks and insurers. We focus on supervisory collection systems for regulators around the world. And we focus on tax reporting, regulatory tax, and calculation of client tax reporting for high net worth customers of wealth managers and private banks. Really, the two things that drive our business, or that we're really focused on, are financial stability and the promotion of financial stability, and tax transparency, all of which is great.
Can you tell us a little bit? I know the cloud is absolutely central to what you do, but not just to Regnology, but to the future of regulation and compliance. Tell us a little bit about that technology and why it's so important.
Yeah, it's a huge growth area for us. So we've been, let's step back. So we deliver our systems by, public cloud, private cloud, or on-prem. Clients have a choice of deployment options at the moment. We've been delivering cloud options for about 20 years, or managed service options for about 20 years. But really, the huge growth is in public cloud at the moment. I think if you look across financial services, whereas there were question marks maybe 3 or 4 years ago, now it's broadly adopted that the vast majority of firms can consume technology through hyperscalers, and we see an enormous amount of growth coming from that in the next 2 years.
Now, I know you got a big date coming up on the calendar here, which is the Regnology's 30th annual RegTech Convention, coming up third week or so in November, the 21st to the 23rd. And as I understand it, the focus is the balancing act of reg and tech. So can you give us a sense of why that topic, why now, who's coming to the conference? Yeah, interesting.
So we've got some, for starters, it's the biggest RegTech conference there is. We're expecting about 2,000 attendees, which is great. They'll come from regulators all around the world, from banks, and other players in the space, and it's pretty senior folks. We've got our keynote speaker is Anders Borg, who is the finance minister of Sweden. He's always very entertaining. He'll do a great job. And we've got lots of other speakers from typical lineup of senior regulators and senior finance folks. We're focusing on the balancing act of reg and tech. Why that? If you look at regulatory reporting, sorry, I shouldn't use lingo here.
That's right.
You look at it, it's one of the last bastions in financial institutions of very, very large teams of people working on manual effort to get reg reports out. And the reason they do that is because regulatory reporting is not an optional exercise. And so there's a huge amount of cost there. And I think, frankly, banks and insurers historically have underinvested in technology and overinvested in people in this area. Then you look at it from the perspective of regulators. They want to reduce the cost of regulation to the industry. And so everything we're working on is using technology to reduce the overall cost for regulated financial institutions, and to streamline the workflow between banks and insurers on the one hand, and their supervisors on the other hand. And we're the only people really in this space who serve both regulated financial institutions and their regulators.
It's interesting you talk about how there's always going to be that cost involved. Now, your regulatory function, your compliance function, those are never going to be profit centers. But at the same time, they can be a real value add for your clients to advertise to their clients their ability to be compliant and to meet with regulations. So how does what you do for your clients make compliance a real selling point to their own clients, if you follow me?
Well, I mean, our solutions are broadly adopted by thousands of banks and insurers and regulators. So there is at least an implicit acceptance by regulators that if you're using Regnology solutions, you're in good hands, you're in great shape. A significant proportion of regulatory data across Europe and indeed around the world passes through our systems. So that's great to know. We're a scale player in this space. We have very close relationships, obviously, with lots of regulators around the world. 60 or over 60 regulators use our technology to consume regulatory reports. So that's fantastic. To your point about regulatory reporting's never going to be a profit center, obviously, right? It's a cost, and actually it's a very considerable cost for financial institutions who have to produce a super clean data set, then use it just for producing reports to go to regulators. Well, what's great is you don't just have to use it for that. Having produced a super clean data set, you can use it for lots of value add services as well. So it doesn't have to be just a cost.
Right. So it's really that's the efficiency play that you're talking about there too, reducing the cost, but then being able to repurpose and use what you're doing elsewhere. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this streamlining the workflow to the people who are the decision makers at the clients you work with, but the people who are actually working with the product as well. Why does that strike a nerve when you talk about streamlining workflow?
Well, again, so our systems are used both by banks and insurers on the one side and regulators on the other side. Now, the traditional way interactions work between, say, a bank and a regulator is the bank produces a regulatory report in a template, or it could be a sort of granular data. They send that off to the regulator, and then there's some sort of email communication back and forth, and that's horribly inefficient. We hear stories of, both from banks and regulators where this communication back and forth is a huge bottleneck. We have built workflows between the banks and regulators. So we have France is a good example of this. We have a strategy called last mile, first mile, where we've got integration between the banks and the regulators. So let's say a regulator has a question about data quality in some sort of regulatory filing. The communication can go attached to the data object, so it makes it much more efficient. And we've got numerous examples about this. Because we have lots of regulators and lots of banks around the world, we're building out this two-way communication, making it much more efficient. And really the natural evolution of this is European initiatives like IREF, which move from template-based reporting to daily granular data. So data at the level of individual loans and mortgages and securities and derivatives, or deposits, and all of the activities of the bank, say, being communicated through to the regulator at granular level on a daily basis. It's not just in Europe. There's the IREF initiative in Europe, which is well known, but we see this happening around the world. There's big initiatives the other side of the Atlantic, your side of the Atlantic, and in other jurisdictions. So all of these initiatives try to, are enabling regulators to get to a point where they can be much more responsive. They're getting more towards real-time supervision. They're getting into much more granular supervision. And they're reducing the cost of regulation to the industry as well. And we're really helping regulators and the industry to lead the drive on this.
Yeah, and if it's 60 regulators, that's quite a spectrum of service you're able to provide there. So back to the conference a little bit. I want to talk about how people can attend, but before that, just want to talk about why now. What is going on among those 60 regulators, and what's going on in the markets and the broader ecosystem that makes what you're talking about there so pivotal right now in November of 2023?
Well, why now? About, what is it, 7 months ago, we had a fairly significant meltdown in the US. We saw Silicon Valley Bank go under, a number of other banks, and I think US regulators have recognized that they need to up their game when it comes to daily consumption of data and granular consumption of data. They need to be much more focused on liquidity. They need to be much more focused on capital. And so we see a lot of, at least sort of positive statements coming out of DC about this. We've got concrete initiatives from lots of other regulators around the world with dates attached to them. And that's what's driving this. We're fortunate that Regnology's business has been focused for many years around this granular data. We've always had getting a little bit technical here, but a single consumption model for data into our regulatory systems, all of which, we go into much more detail, but all of which means we're very well prepared for these granular data initiatives, and we're working with quite a few regulators already on them. So why is, because regulators want to reduce the cost of regulation to the industry, and they want to make sure they are in much better position to supervise the industries they're looking after. One more point on this. So think, if Please. You're, let's say you're the FDIC sitting in DC, and you've got to resolve a bank over the weekend. If you have a granular daily data collection process, then that means you're always collecting every day the data you need to resolve that bank.
Want to talk a little bit about what's been going on at Regnology? 5 acquisitions in the calendar year. That's pretty substantial. And I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, what the ethos is behind those, and what that tells us about what's going to be happening next at Regnology.
Yeah, if you look at the businesses we operate in, they're fairly fragmented. Historically, there's been, for example, in reg reporting, quite a few national champions. In the tax reporting business, we've bought businesses from the big 4. We're a scale player. There's plenty of subscale businesses in this space, and it's expensive to run a financial technology business that's serving a global footprint. We're fortunate that we've got global distribution, and so for many of the subscale players out there, it works out better for them to combine with us and take advantage of our global distribution. So I think the future for us is, or the next couple of years, you're going to see further geographic expansion and as I said before, significant move, or if not fairly complete move of our customer base to the cloud.
And when you talk about geographic expansion, which regions are we specifically targeting?
So if you look at the 3 businesses we've got, reg reporting is historically largely a European business. Tax reporting is global, supervisory collections is global. On the reg reporting side, we've hired teams in Singapore and a team in the US. So we'll launch our first products for the US and Canada later this year, and we'll be building out the Asian business as well. But I think the US and Canada in particular is very exciting.
North America, I know it well, and that's great to see you guys there. And this was really interesting conversation, Rob. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it. Listeners and viewers, if you'd like to learn more about Regnology, you can visit their website at regnology.net. Again, to sign up for the conference, that's regtech-convention.com. And if you'd like to learn more about Forefront, you can visit us at ForefrontComms, that's COMMS.com. So thank you very much again, Rob, for joining us today. And thanks very much to all of you for watching and listening.